be an easy lock-in, you gotta assume. Yeah, that one's pretty nasty. So, what are you gonna do about that now? Because you're probably gonna have something. You can have something like a Lucian locked in. You can have yourself something like that Jinx as well. Jinx is already very long range. Getting the extra campfire on top of that too makes it incredibly hard to play against. So JDG got themselves one of the most banned and high priority champions in the game, and that Meteor locked in on the other side. You're really hoping with the Aphelios and the Ahri to get some early snowball off, because if you let a hyper carry with Meteor start to get off to the races, you are so doomed.
And this is also just straight up terrifying. The Kanavi Wukong will find very unique paths, but as well as be just such a wonderful setup tool for JDG. I do like the priority given to mid lane for Haichao and the Ahri. Just try to get something comfortable, but get something that can actually just feel like mobile out of the mid lane. We do get that Jinx locked in, though, for Ruler.
This is so terrifying because Meteor, one of the highest priority champions on the patch. And then you have Kanavi, who is the best Wukong in the world. We saw again what he's done recently on that pick. And Ruler, who is like at worst top like 2 or 3 Jinx in the world. Maybe you put like someone historical like Deft in the list or something like that too. But Ruler, in terms of his hyper carry performances, is the best AD carrier in the world right now. You can see that LGD are looking at this team and saying, okay, we have to let something go through. We are just flipping early. You've got Snowball champions, you've got Ahri, Aphelios, and now the Blitzcrank locked in as well. If this game is not already kind of out of whack by 5 minutes in, I think LGD are probably crying, but that's what they're aiming for. First 5 minutes, just make something happen. I wouldn't be even surprised if you lock into like a JinJiao or something like this for Meteor. He's got a weird champion pool. Maybe you can bring something like that out.
I still want to see the Graves again, honestly. But we see how that goes against Kanavi, who is also very proficient on the Graves. I actually really like this Blitzcrank pick for JinJiao. As I'm looking, has not played the pick competitively. We're getting a lot of these kind of first editions because there are just so many strong picks going through that can be niche, but it gives you that priority. It gives you that target selection if you can hit those rocket grabs. So JinJiao going to try to make the difference in this bot lane 50-50 that he was highlighting towards, and we'll see how the rest of that pans out, as now we're going to be looking away from that bottom lane for the rest of this, as the Syndra and the Gnar band come through for LGD. It is the Gwen band to start off that second phase for JDG.
So Gwen off the table means that your kind of premier tank killing champion on that top side is not available. It means that stuff like Sion and Malphite gain a lot more value. So it's going to be that Nocturne off the table too. One of the easiest ways to close the distance on the other side, and it's going to be a Kindred lock-in. Another snowbally champion, which really was piloted by Shun the most by BLG in that spring season, but a lot more people across the globe are starting to really pick it up from MSI and beyond. And 369, this champion is banned away from him oh so much, but the Gragas finds his way into his hands once more.
He is a happy camper. But it is Meteor picking up that Kindred, as you said, once again. But on the other side, Kanavi is not too shabby of a Kindred player either. We'll see if he knows some of the ways to get up under that. But it is the LeBlanc locked in for Knights. The golden left hand will have some power to it here in this first game kickoff. And the Mordekaiser's the final pickup for LGD.
I think back when I first started playing League of Legends, one of the most premier mid lane matchups in the whole game at that point was Ahri versus LeBlanc. We're here, 10 odd years later. God, that's a long time to play this game. We still got that same matchup. It's changed an awful lot over the years, particularly with itemizations, runes. I mean, the whole rune system has been reinvented multiple times since that odd time. But still, Knight on the LeBlanc on an AP Assassin playmaker, always a joy to watch, and also has the ability to pick off the likes of a Blitzcrank or a Kindred, which can sometimes overstep their safe bounds and get burst out by that Assassin in the mid lane.
And what I love for this first game of this series is that both teams have put on the boxing glove. They've given themselves priority in certain locations, and it's about executing now on that. Now, we did talk a little bit about JDG not necessarily the most clean going in early, but if you go to the team fights later on, you go to objective setups, you go to macro, they look so good. And that's where we wanted LGD to really try to find something, try to get something on the board for themselves. But if you do get to that team fight moment, especially with the way that the composition has already been drafted for JDG, they will have all the power. So the eggs are in the hands of LGD. Can they make it to the finish line without cracking a single one? We've got some comfort coming out for game number 1. The Kindred is all eyes for me on Meteor. It's JDG's home arena as we get into it now. JDG versus LGD.
That is such a sick skybox as well, the 3D advert in the sky. banners showing the colors there. So, Ruler, be very careful about where you step here, buddy. Much easier to land that ward in that tri-brush nowadays. There are some indicators to show exactly where that ward is going to go. But that ward is over the wall. Potential of a hook level 1. Going to catch anyone.
Actually, I heard some.
There it is.
Rocket grab, and that's a flash.
Well, that's your level 1. It's a flash away from missing. It doesn't really change the nature of the bot lane push, at least. But there's a chance that you can start returning back to that lane, especially with Blitzcrank versus Enchanters. One of the things you can do, particularly at level 2, level 3, is flash in with a knock-up, get that guaranteed hook beyond that point. Can't flash away. Particularly with the Ignite in that lane too. It's something, and like we said, if this game is not out of whack by 5 minutes in, like LGD are probably really crying at that point, but maybe they can get a second hook onto Roulette.
I love this so much, man. LPC, first and foremost, going against the organization that he spent so much time with coming up in the LDL, with their LDL roster for JDG, and now getting a crack at Ruler on the other side, who, you know, sitting behind as well, trying to find something to go onto and find a bit of a namesake against this man. I think it's so cool, but also the pairings that we have with them, right? Like JinJiao is such an experienced bot laner, and he just wants to prop up this young ADC.
Well, I was half wondering whether we'd see Envyy even coming in for the series. Of course, he came in from Blue Sandbox from the LCK to join LGD for this summer split, but not to be the case. He's going back to LPC. Top side, kind of tank bruiser, AP champions on both sides of this, but one of these players has much more time on these champions than the other, having some decent trades early on as 369 as well.
And some pretty heavily trading, and this is your first Melio cast, also one that we don't get very often, but I can appreciate the priority once it's left open. That missing is just going to scoop that one up right away.
Yeah, well, you have like this kind of split identity of Meteor, right, where he's kind of anti-dive in a way that his ult has that giant cleanse, and you also have kind of the ability to kind of like kind of stop a lot of melee champions engage with your Q as well, because that has that mini knockback on it. But then also you're such a buff bot as well, one of the strongest enchanters in the game right now. In this game, you're not really going to be dealing with a lot of people diving into you. You've got 4 very long-range champions. The Blitzcrank's melee, but his hook is really the only thing you care about in regards to that. So he's much more about giving the extra range to the likes of that Jinx. Heck, even giving the extra attack range to something like a Wukong in a clutch moment is also kind of scary. You pop that Q for the extra attack range, the campfire as well. See if that comes into play a little later. And importantly so, this early laning phase, Ruler missing, get themselves an early back, stop themselves getting flashed on at level 3 odd by the Blitzcrank, stop themselves getting punished quite as early into the game than LGD would have been aiming for.
Unfortunately, Meteor loses the 50-50 on the first target of the Scuttle Crab. Maybe able to find something a little bit later. Again, you got to look at the aggressive nature that Kindred's going to have to take in this one, and just keep an eye on it here as JinJiao actually going to try and clear as much vision as possible over here, make sure this bottom lane is safe, and Kanavi will deny that first mark from Meteor. I know Meteor's maybe looking for something as JinJiao goes for the rocket grab, goes right in as well. The Flame Chompers aren't going to be enough. Ruler goes down to first blood, and that's straight onto Meteor.
But JDG had done all the hard work. The wave was pushing back towards them. And then Ruler walks up to try and trim that wave, get some of that extra farm before it reaches that turret, maybe stave off a dive, but then just doesn't respect the graviton. We've seen a lot of Aphelios thrash, of course, over the years with the same kind of reasoning. Root into hook, very, very dangerous. JDG, they don't respect it. First kill goes over to LGD. That's very important for them, because it is before that 5-minute mark, but we kind of tentatively said, yeah, it's just kind of what we need. LPC, right, does the 3-weapon switch, uses the onslaught of that Severum, gets himself out of ammo, goes straight through into that root. It's well played from LPC, but still, seeing that weapon coming up next, just not respected enough from JDG's bot lane.
The Gravitum just sitting there waiting for the rocket grab to come in and scoop you away. Maybe not the way you want to be swept off your feet if you're a Ruler, but this time around LGD do succeed.
I Blitzcrank, very funny skin, of course has a bit of a competitive history in it as well, wasn't allowed in professional play for a long time. I was kind of hoping we'd see the battle plot Blitzcrank though, because all I can think of when I see that skin is, you know the little green dudes from Toy Story?
Yes.
You know how there is the Claw? BattleBot's Blitzcrank, it just has the claw.
He is
it gets
the claw.
me every time. Every
You
time it's
didn't
like,
know, but
I have
BattleBots-
been chosen the claw. Kanavi has chosen to make his way down to the spot side though, and sadly won't see that skin on the Blitzcrank.
You didn't know Battle Boss Blitzcrank was in Toy Story in the end.
I didn't know.
Deep cut. But I'm a big fan of the mech ones. I don't remember the land. I don't remember
It has
the
the
name
Lancer
actually. It's like some
skins,
crazy
right?
name, yeah.
Yeah, it's got like the
it's pretty
Paradon Lancer
cool.
or something or whatever it is. I like them. They're cool. Yeah.
The one where
I
they
don't
had
really
like the
like
light in the
Hecarim one, but
dark.
it's good.
Hey! Don't you? Why
But
you
he
gotta
uses
throw
it like
Stray
an
at
axe,
Hecarim?
right? Well, it looks like he's using this giant spear instead of like he's using it as like a giant like swingy thing instead of a stabbing.
It's a
It just gets me.
lance!
Anyway,
It's a lance. You get your like medieval knowledge card taken away. I know you've been in the future, all right. You've been on a
that's
Star
the one.
Cruiser in space, but they're still medieval.
funnily enough, I have like some qualifications that I used to do fencing for a very long time, so I've spent some time around some medieval weaponry. Slightly different nowadays, a bit modernized, much like the
Just
iPod
never
strength
seen the
itself.
lance.
Back to the game at hand though. Lost the 50-50 on that bot skull. Next spawn of it is going to be towards the top side as well. So Meteor is still, I believe, sat at those 0 marks. You can see heading up to them
so
on that
good.
one as well. So even though First Dragon is going over to LGD, Meteor on an individual level would have liked to get a little bit more towards that. A lot of people don't necessarily recognize how much you really get overall from those marks. Hold on to that thought for a brief moment. That is a level 6 on the Mordekaiser available.
Oh, level 7 now, as well as now flash over the wall gets him out. But that will be a flash that's very much needed from Kanavi. Caught on the aggressive invade of LGD's jungle, Meteor will respond on the other side with a past tower pushing LGD.
His Knight's here though, does have level 6. How much damage can you do with that sigil? Not enough. Haichao is down here as well. Knight just looking to try and buy his bot lane some space on this turret.
Couple plates already going down to LGD's bot lane. I think so far you're doing a little bit better than 50-50 for the bot lane of LPC and JinJiao. I'm loving the aggression and the presence they're putting around bot lane. There's a clear game plan to hover around this bottom lane and make sure it's okay.
So, back to the larger game state. We are seeing that Knight kind of scarily at that point, actually able to get out of his lane, do some damage. If he gets to continue to do so, you've got to be a little bit worried for LGD. If Knight, one of those X-Factor players on an X-Factor champion that can really blow up pretty much anyone across this composition of LGD, none of them really get to the point where they're tanky enough to really shrug off LeBlanc's damage. You're really hoping you can catch someone, catch the LeBlanc dashing forward with something like the silence from that Blitzcrank. He's currently into this mid lane again, but Knight has done his due diligence, got that vision down, and LGD, they have themselves a slight lead, but can they really stick through with that? Feels like still a bit of a long shot when you're against a team the caliber of JDG.
There's a lot of movement from JDG and a lot of pings towards this Rift Herald, so that's the obvious focus right now for them. They did lose that first dragon. We'll have another spawn about 3:15, but this big Rift Herald could be utilized to try to get some more influx into Knight here in the mid lane, or maybe even, I guess, if they want to go back for it after they dive fearness up here and try to get him. He doesn't have ulti. He doesn't really have any way out, and they have that shred damage. One more cyclone, but they don't have it. They can't get it. Kanavi taking a couple tower shots, and fearness lives to tell the tale.
There's Ruler half HP. Have to flash away from something towards his bot side. LPC also use that flash. This could be a dive incoming.
That is a dive incoming, and Meteor cleans him up, gets the mark as well.
Clean stuff from Meteor and LGD, at least putting Ruler behind, very importantly so. Gets themselves a mark.
Ooh, good flash by Ruler there. Oh, both flashing the ultis.
So, Haichao falling behind a little bit in this lane now as well. Just looking to clear the wave if at all possible. Going to lose out a fair amount. Well, a couple of these. JinJiao saving the day, clearing up those minions.
Appreciate JinJiao, the stop by, help out. You know, get you a support that can do that. We have the Storm Razor actually now completed for LPC, and Meteor's trying to punish Ruler on the way back. He doesn't have any summoner spells, and this could be another kill going down. Meteor, he strikes again, 2-0-1 on this Kindred.
I think Meteor and crew have managed to keep Ruler a little bit asleep, a little bit napping. First off, kind of didn't really respect the Binding Eclipse, the Gravitum from LPC a little earlier into the game for the first death. couple of kills later, and this Jinx sat at 0-3. Yeah, don't get me wrong, Roulette, you still got to believe in him to turn up in those team fights, but going 3 kills down, really not what you expect out of this AD carry.
That's a double early Stormraiser for Meteor and LPC for this double marksman carry composition that LGD has gone to time and time again this split already. And they found success in a lot of occasions. They haven't been able to find a series win because they're hard-fought games and their late game does become questionable. But this is exactly what we wanted to see out of LGD.
And particularly with those Stormraisers as well, adds in that extra slowing effect, which is, of course, really good for Blitzcrank. Get that micro slow. He's walking forward again, potentially seeing if he could use anything on that point. Do have that route available again from that Aphelios, very dangerous point in time for JDG to pay attention to. We have ourselves a Dragon spawning in a minute. Would be a second one for LGD. Herald put in this mid lane, though, potentially give JDG a window of pressure to work around to solve themselves the map.
I'd love to see the gold dumped into Knight's pockets at least a little bit. So what we were hoping for when we saw them kind of posturing around that Rift Herald. We do get that Divine Sunder completion for Kanavi, and we'll be looking at first items for at least Ruler and Knight coming very, very soon. But I expect more pressure to be dealt down bottom lane for LGD. We already see some hovers, a lot of good vision from LGD early on in this game as well.
And that vision potentially means you can stop Knight from doing his thing. Doesn't have any information on where LGD members are right now. Looking for a charm at best. Kanavi is here. This could be dangerous.
Kanavi was baiting it. That's a big cyclone, but Knight has to get out backwards. Kanavi now trying to lead them away. And JinJiao, he's just on a rampage here. The man's playing like a Chad. You got fearness in topside. Oh, flash away from fearness. Will not end in a solo bolo for 369.
Close run stuff. It's going to be another couple of minions lost to that turret. There is a Jinx ult. Was wondering if that would get thrown out. But one of those fights not going to be so at this point. Meteor going to take him down. That second dragon as well. 2-0 and 2, picking up a couple of marks which were harder to come by a little earlier on. Ultimate now on attack for fearness.
A little bit of a duel going on, but fearness is going to get that huge shield. Can he get one more smackdown? And he does. Fearness, the solo on a 369.
Threes across the board. Can't quite get himself that kill just beforehand. Sustain comes through. And JDG, they are a little bit behind the curve now. Significantly behind even. Significant gold being built up by individual members of LGD. And despite good solo laning CS numbers, Knight can't quite make that skirmish and bot side river work out. 369 can't quite make things work out in the top side as well. They're really looking towards that first skirmish of the game, whether we can see some of that JDG kind of mechanical prowess come through, because as it stands, feels like a couple of them have been caught a little bit napping. Goes into this point, caught on the turret, no mana, no cooldowns. Can't really disengage the Mordekaiser after that point.
Honestly, just the damage coming out from Fearness on the Mordekaiser here without that first item is still so strong into 369, who didn't really have any cooldowns left after that one. Now, we are looking at Knight in the mid lane, trying to find some presence outside of this lane. Haichao has the tools to answer, but I do actually want to see Knight get involved a little bit here as we're, going to be hitting that level 11 for him.
Counterpoint. How do you do that when there's absolutely no vision across the board? Yes, you're part of that.
It is hard.
You put down some of those wards, you clear some of them yourself. But that's been a real factor for this LGD. They haven't skipped those steps. And for a team that has had a lot rectify some of the worries we've had about this team.
They are definitely answering some questions in this first game. It is the early game, though. We said there is still always seemingly a timer when you're facing against JDG. And while I still think the combos want to have a little bit of success early for JDG, they are just so mechanically good when it comes to the 5-on-5s. You'll see if LPC's lead, Meteor's lead, can be enough to bridge that gap.
Okay, so what's next on the table? Second Herald spawning. JDG have themselves a bit of vision towards that top side. This could be a moment for them. LGD, they've been playing around their own vision for a little while. They do see Kanavi there, though, and that is very close onto the clock.
Very, very close. Meteor's very close also to a fourth stack here on the Kindred. Trying to unlock some extra potential. Take the chains off, if you will. But but so far needing to actually find a little bit of presence around this
Oh,
next
actually,
Rift Herald.
that's a mark on the top scuttle. That's
Yeah,
going to be 4
that's it.
marks off of that scuttle. That's it. So
He won the
of course, that
RNG
gives
finally.
You, well, that gives you a lot of extra stats. Trying to see maybe if they can maybe just get the ult out of 369, chooses to go away from that. But anyway, I tried to make this point a little earlier, but then we're rudely interrupted by fearness ulting Kanavi around red buff. But there's a lot of stats you get from Kindred marks. You get Q attack speed, your W's percent HP damage when the wolf chomps, and then the execute from your E is also increased per mark. And that's not on the 4th mark, that's every single mark. Meteor getting 4 marks early also gets that attack range increase, but all of those stats adding up means it's actually quite dangerous to fight around even like something this Herald. JDG, they might go for it anyway, but
They're
I don't
pulling
know
the
how
trigger.
wise this is.
They are bringing in the flanks, but LGD a little bit caught out here. LPC's just by himself in the pit. Knight's looking, Knight's hunting. He just completed the looting, but on the other side, he got at least a fight going through. I thought Knight was going to go where he can't join in. That means LGD are moving forward. They have now peeled enough for LPC that they have a front to back. He's got chakrams going, and the Rift Herald is now the focus for LGD. They secure it, and what a scrappy team fight from them.
I mean, Ruler can't do anything at this point in the game. You need to be late game Jinx to deal with a Mordekaiser that starts locking you up in that ultimate. That ultimate could have gone into Kanavi. It could have gone onto any number of people. It goes onto the AD carry, though. And as you're rightly saying, LPC gets to start firing across with those chakrams as well. LGD, I think they're probably walking away from that one with a bit of an unexpected victory, because why are JDG contesting this one? Maybe you think Knight can do a little bit more in the start of this play, but Knight isn't even in this fight, not really starting to deal damage at any kind of important point. Missing gets shut down very, very early on. 369 doesn't get a huge amount of value, and JDG feels like they're just going to sleepwalk into a lost fight.
Does seem that way, and honestly, LPC is stepping up in this moment. It's huge, and LGD are going to go from strength to strength from that one and take a 3rd dragon. That gives them so much decision-making power here on the Rift.
It is the Cloud Dragon, which a lot of the time Cloud Dragon feels a bit meh on certain champions, and you know, we've had this back and forth for a number of years now about, is Cloud Dragon useful, is Cloud Soul useful, and I'll say regardless of the meta it's been in, Mordekaiser has always been one of the best Cloud Soul users. You pop that ult and someone starts getting locked in the Thunderdome with you. Like, what do you do when he's running at you with that much extra move speed? You pop the Ghost from the Jinx, and it means nothing. Ruler is not going to be able to disengage from that, nor is anyone else from JDG very easily. Fearness, for one, going to be very happy if that one gets on the table early.
Truly will, and it's about kind of those little moments in these team fights, but especially JDG just on the back foot here. Not something we've seen them in the case of often with this kind of composition, but we are getting to a point, you have to talk about it, where we have seen LGD struggle with the macro decisions later on. Now, they've set themselves up for success here. 3 dragons in a row gives you so much power, but they're going to have to get these resets off, try to get these item spikes going, which you're seeing second item completions now come up for a majority, at least for Meteor and LPC, and that's going to be a big spike for them. Still a while to go.
We've got second items with Gale Forces in for both our AD carries now, basically looking at each other on the tab menu and just going, huh, they're building that, I guess I'll do that one too. But with the upfront burst you have of the... yeah, exactly right. I still haven't seen the new movie. I've heard it's very, very good. Looking forward to that one. Gotta go for that one at some point. But with the Storm Razor kind of slight slow and the extra burst coming through for it, and then also the execute damage of the Gale Force as well, while the consistent DPS might not be as high as some other AD carry item builds, the burst coming out of these 2 items, very, very high, especially for this moment in time, and no one on the side of JDG is really set up to deal with it that well. Kanavi was looking for a potential flank at that point, doesn't choose to pull that trigger. Second Herald is in the hands of LPC. That's why everything is kind of zeroing in towards this mid lane. If you take down this mid lane out of turret as LGD, that Blitzcrank is going to be very hard to deal with.
It's just a robot and his 2 assassins. I guess 3 of them now. Because literally they're just trying to find JinJiao's rocket grabs, and whoever gets grabbed by that, you're probably going to die. I'm just going to say that right now. We do get that Rift Herald pop for a little bit of pressure from LGD in mid lane.
Yep, that's the Sepia mod activated. See if JinJiao can find anything here. You're really looking to set up for the Blitzcrank if you can. Herald finally going to be dropped in here, but JDG, both solo laners roaming towards the mid lane.
Actually, see potential area for a trigger pull from JDG, but they're not going to do it. We're going to get the hover from LGD up the top side of the map. And they will be hovering around this Baron where it looks awfully tempting, don't it?
Look, it's LPL. We're past 20 minutes. It's Act 2. Baron is alive. And when you have so many AD carries on the board, the DPS gets pretty high onto that.
They're just hovering it. They're just waiting. They're like,
Well, they absolutely
they
should,
go.
because you have the Blitzcrank, you got the damage, you have the items. Why shouldn't you at least try and force JDG to burn something for this? They burned the Jinx ult. They would have liked to teleport if at all possible. Not going to be able to do so. And LGD not willing to flip a game just yet. Only 2,000 gold ahead, which is kind of surprising given how we've been talking about the game. Like, wow, look at all these plays LGD have been doing. It's not out of control just yet. And I think LGD correctly sensing the state of the game, saying, look, we're not completely out of the woods just yet. Let's not try and flip it on a Baron.
And exactly, because JDG will capitalize on a single misstep and just make you pay for it. Ruler might be 1-4. He's still Jinx. He's also still Ruler. Again, so
yes.
you have to expect a lot to come out. And we had said from the very beginning, there is just a subliminal timer going on in this game where JDG will have to be in 5v5s, and that's where they thrive.
It's like I'll give you 3 free punches at me. Let's see what you can do. The 3 punches have happened, folks. My turn, says Ruler. He has himself almost up to that second item. LGD now just trying to defend their own mid outer turret, despite not having the Herald. JDG going to take that first mid lane outer turret. 369.
Oh, flash out of Meteor there, and then there is some hesitancies with a TP on the bottom side, because fearness going to grab Ruler here, looking for the one-on-one. Now Ruler's out of the fight for a while, but LGD need to follow up fearness. Ruler's gone, and that means LGD is moving forward. JinJiao trying to find an angle here, but so is Haichao. Can't get that charm, but this tower will fall.
Okay, let's just revisit that other thing. So like, aha, Ruler's online now. He still has to deal with the Mordekaiser. Fearness does a great job of getting that teleport across, making sure that Ruler cannot escape. And now with the Dragon spawning in 10 seconds, despite losing the initial mid lane outer turret, a bit worried for how JDG were getting easy inroads, they might get themselves a free soul off of this.
That's so big. Cloud Soul going over to a double marksman comp. 369 was fishing, but he will come up with no fish today. That is the soul, but that also means a 6-minute timer for an Elder Dragon. And I'm starting to get the vague whiff of some burgers.
Well, actually, at this point, when you see it's a pretty decent comp with a lot of ranged characters that can stay in range and kite more effectively with that Cloud Soul, with the Mordekaiser, which is one of the best users of the move speed as well. That's definitely something to take into account on that front. But yes, JDG, they would really find themselves in a point where they need to start making themselves some plays now. They can't keep sliding all these advantages away. It's to the Baron they go.
Well, I said we had burgers, and now we're flipping them. 369 trying to get a flank over here on the other side, while JDG is forcing the hand of LGD. This is so like JDG. Let's hand check and see what happens. Meteor's waiting over the side. I think JDG are going to pull back. He's the only one in the pit. Meteor's going to tank it now as well, taking the damage. He's looking for the Baron steal, and now he gets it. Kanavi in that death realm will signal the end for him, and LGD with the Gale Force from Meteor. Ruler, you're all alone. And that's huge for LGD, who continue to rampage all over JDG.
Where were you when JDG got absolutely demolished by LGD in this first game? LGD, a team that we've criticized for being imprecise at different points in the game. Sometimes it's the early game, sometimes it's mistakes later on. In this one, they've stuck to their guns, haven't overforced the issue, and now they find themselves in a pretty great spot against the reigning champions of MSI and the LPL.
And I can appreciate the attempt here from JDG to try to just force the hand of LGD, but they picked this fight apart so cleanly.
Well, also, I mean, I think it's great in terms of, if you consider the state of the game and you kind of just put a post-it over the champions and think, okay, yeah, taking the Baron at this point, you need to force something. but you're forcing a major objective against a Mordekaiser ult and then the Kindred ult as well. 2 ways to make that secure that much harder and elongate the fight against better items from LGD. Doesn't work out for them. JDG, it was a low percent chance opportunity, which they handily lose. And now that Elder Dragon, it can't come soon enough. 3.5 minutes, that's not going to be anywhere near the time of like the Baron overlap as well. LGD going to get full use out of this Baron buff, and then they can reset, and then they can go back out onto the map. JDG, this is dire straits for them.
And the rest of this gold here and the rest of the Baron buff is going to give 3 item spikes to Meteor. You're already on 3 item spikes for LPC, but they also could just get lasting damage onto the base of JDG. And while you do get that Rabadons for Knight, it just feels like paltry prizes comparatively to what LGD is rocking right now. That'll be a tier 2 down, and Haichao is looking for a charm. You also have Fearness in mid lane, barreling down a tier 2.
Banshee's Veil on the Ahri makes it much harder for Knight to get a burst trade onto Haichao, and also means that Haichao can set up for the double AD carries and that Blitzcrank as well. Very much on utility duty, but in this game has huge value. Now LGD crushing in across multiple lanes on the 2 of them. You can't really shut down the Mordekaiser. He'll ult someone away, turn it into a 1v1. How much can you do on this bot side? Ruler's getting caught.
Haichao not going to hit one of those, but does a lot of damage anyways. And now he's looking back at Ruler again with the Spirit Rushes. At Kanavi, who's caught out yet again. The charm doesn't connect, but around the corner is Fearness, who's getting this inhib tower here as well. So that'll be 2 lanes busted open by LGD.
Teleport, despite the desperation. Haichao can TP back in. What can Knight do?
Moonlight Vigil for an LPC. Luckily, it's Melio. We got a lot of healing. Knight a little bit worried to go in after that, as he will back away from Fearness, and that should be back stopped. But the empowered back should come out. Oh, it's not. Is it enough? He got it.
Oh, just about gets the empowered recall off. I was wondering if it would be denied long enough, but still, LGD clean, considered play. They're not overforcing. Despite the fact that it might have looked like that in the base, and think, oh, that's a flash blown, they didn't hit the skill shots. They still realized that they were safe, and that's the very important thing there. There was no real threat of a huge engage coming in from JDG. I think Fearness had enough eyes on Kanavi to make sure that the Wukong wasn't making a mess of things, and they also still blew a couple of resources from Ruler. If they hit those skill shots, yeah, it could have been the end of the game. Either way, it was a bit of a free play. Now LGD still in a very good spot, getting their resets, getting the item completions, and getting back out onto the map.
And what a game plan so far from LGD. They knew they needed to focus around what bot lane was going to have. They put so much safety there. They were double warding. They were having Meteor focus down there. Because if you get this double marksman comp off the table or off the ground running, it looks so good. And yeah, Knight's just caught out here all by himself. That's the side lane catch out classic. And Haichao picks up the kill.
It is, but now without Knight, what can JDG do? I don't think they have the damage to defend the base. Even if Knight wasn't wave clear, he was a bit of threat to keep JDG pinned back. They have their Nexus towers, and that's it.
And just like that, LGD on the doorstep of JDG in this game 1. Big triple knockup with the Mega Death Rock. He got the Lambs Spike coming out, though, and Ruler just needs to get a little bit excited, but he has no more frontline as they've overextended. And Ruler not going to get grabbed just yet. Try to pop back some rockets. The Moonlight Vigil goes a little bit wide. But in game number 1, LGD with reservation, but clear-cut decision-making will put JDG on the back foot with LPC's performance. They take down Missing one more time. They want these kills. They want the mental diff. And LGD finish off game 1 against JDG.
14th place in spring. That's where we saw LGD last time we left off. Coming into summer, had some mixed results, but they take down the reigning champions in this first game of this series. And it was a good game. Yeah, don't get me wrong, JDG had a lot of mistakes that they made. It did feel like there was some disrespect, particularly coming in from Ruler, that time where he died under turret, then died on his way back to lane. It felt like the team wasn't supporting this bot side when they were put under huge amounts of pressure. But some individual mistakes, some macro mistakes, put JDG into a position which even they could not team fight themselves out of.
But as I was saying in the game as well, it's just that clear-cut game plan from LGD. They get these marksman comps for Meteor. They find a little bit of something through Fearness, but it is LPC and the help, the lifting up that JinJiao does. It was actually incredible. And we had some fears of what LGD could do against JDG. And honestly, those fears right now are going over to JDG's side.
And that's crazy to think of, but just another day in the LPL, I suppose. Despite the fact that JDG were the team that would just do away with any team below them in the standings, they struggled a little bit against some of the top teams very early into spring. They did away with that at some point too. Coming into summer, coming back from MSI, maybe a bit of an MSI hangover there. LGD proving a team worthy enough to take a game off of them. Crazy.
Yeah, and also through LPC, who was the Joy Dream, which is the LDL roster of JDG last year. So incredible stuff, especially. And I love to see that they played through that bot lane and found those successes, because we heard from JinJiao that it is so important. And while the sleeping beast might be awoken now for JDG, we'll see what their answer is in game number 2. I'm still so proud to highlight a lot of LGD's successes, because this is something they've been building to, right? They have been dragging out fights. They've been trying to find this first win of the season, and they just haven't found that success yet. And especially, wanting to find that success through these powerful pieces and Meteor's crazy draft picks.
For sure. That's our post-game graph. And, we looked very early into this draft and said, oh, the Milio's been given over. That's a problem, very high priority. But then you get a couple of picks in and you start seeing the plan from LGD, which is, look, we know we're going to give you a lot of your comfort, a lot of your iconic picks. I mean, Knights LeBlanc, it's fairly iconic. Kanavi, best Wukong in the world, 369. Similar kind of tails across the board. But they say, look, we have a plan which can flip the game early. It can make the game non-standard and not about just standing around in 5v5s and looking for that initiation in the way that JDG have been so good about playing around. LGD, they don't let JDG get to a stable point, and despite the fact that there were a couple of worries, particularly with 369 getting some good trades early, LGD really stick the landing.
All I'm saying is 0 deaths between fearness, Haichao, and LPC. That's textbook, my friend. That is textbook. And I just think that LGD have a lot going off that game 1, but I do still want to say sticking to this plan, right? They still need to execute another game.
And this is the thing, right? JDG, they've got the little devil kind of sign. Maybe the book that they've been reading from, that textbook, maybe it's some exorcism. We'll have to see if they can stick that one in the second game, though. I need to replenish some of those holy water supplies, see what they can get out.
Yeah, you're hoping for some fresh reinforcements there, but we will see what happens as we will be getting to our second game in Beijing in JDG's home arena after a short little